The greatest sign that something is wrong in your life is not suffering. It is the constant feeling of not belonging. When you live in the wrong place, not even happiness can convince you. If you carry this old feeling of not belonging, of always feeling out of place even when everything seems right, this is not a flaw in you nor mental confusion. It is your soul recognizing that you are living in a place that was never truly yours. And Rumi points precisely to this discomfort as a calling, not as a mistake, a silent shock that tightens the chest, exhausts the body, and whispers that there is an inner place you abandoned and that is now beginning to demand your return. If you feel out of place, perhaps this was never your place, and that sentence is not poetic, it is brutal, because it touches directly that pain you try to normalize every day, the feeling of waking up and living a life that doesn't fit, of being surrounded by people, routines, and expectations that seem to fit everyone except you, like borrowed clothes that pinch, itch, and never settle properly. You try to adapt, try to explain yourself, try to convince yourself it's just a phase, that everyone feels this way. But deep down, something will not quiet. Something insists, something weighs on you, and the more you force belonging, the more exhausted you become. In Sufism, Rumi speaks of this inner call as longing for the origin, not for a physical place, but for the state in which the soul recognizes itself. It is not rebellion, it is not ingratitude, it is remembrance. The soul knows when it is far from what is true, and when you ignore this, it does not scream. It aches in silence, turns into nameless anguish, emptiness in the midst of abundance, sadness without an apparent cause. Have you noticed how things can be working on the outside while feeling completely wrong on the inside? That is not bad luck, it is misalignment. Rumi points out that the human being becomes lost when trying to live where nothing vibrates with their essence. And essence here is not some distant mysticism. It is simple. It is what allows your body to relax, your breathing to become whole, your mind to fall silent for a few seconds. When you are in the wrong place, everything becomes effort. Everything weighs heavy, everything exhausts you. Even achievements feel hollow. You feel like a foreigner in your own life. And the ego, that voice that wants approval and safety, tells you to endure, to adapt, to go with the flow, because that's just how it is. But the soul does not speak that language. The soul speaks through sensation, through tightness, through a discomfort that does not go away. In Sufism, this is seen as a sign that you are living far from your center. Center is not perfection, it is alignment. When you step away from it, life becomes noise. Perhaps you have spent years trying to fit into jobs, relationships, cities, versions of yourself that were never yours, and each failed attempt has added another layer of exhaustion. You begin to think the problem is you, that something is missing in you, when in truth you are insisting on staying where your soul never wanted to live. Rumi does not romanticize this, he confronts it. Suffering grows when you betray what you feel to be true. And betraying the soul does not bring immediate guilt. It brings prolonged emptiness. That is why you feel that strange urge to leave without knowing where, to change everything without knowing what, to silence the world because everything feels like too much noise. It is not confusion, it is the excess of distance between who you are and where you are. On the Sufi path, there is the idea that the soul recognizes home by the taste of peace, not by logic. Peace here is not the absence of problems, it is the absence of inner war. Observe, when you imagine certain paths, people, or choices, does your body contract or expand? The body knows before the mind. Rumi uses simple metaphors. The fish suffers outside the water not because it is weak, but because it is in the wrong place. You are not broken, you are out of your element. And no one teaches this in school, no one socially validates this, because the world prefers adjusted people, not aligned ones. But the soul does not negotiate with what is false. When you begin to listen to this discomfort, something changes. It doesn't change outside, it changes inside. You stop violating yourself trying to fit. You begin to respect the signal. This does not mean abandoning everything impulsively. It means stopping the lie you tell yourself. In Sufism, this return is called remembrance. To remember yourself is to remember where you never should have left. It is subtle and powerful at the same time. You begin to realize that it is not the world rejecting you, it is you abandoning yourself in order to be accepted, and that has a cost that is far too high. Perhaps the question is not, why don't I feel like I belong? but what am I trying to belong to that has nothing to do with me? This inversion is powerful, because when you change the question, you change the axis of life. Rumi points out that the path is not to find a new place outside, but to stop running from the place within. When you move closer to that center, even if the external world has not yet changed, something eases. Anguish loses its grip. Emptiness begins to make sense. You understand that you are not late nor wrong, only displaced from yourself. And what if this feeling of not belonging is not a problem to be solved, but a call to be heard? What if the discomfort is precisely the proof that there is still something alive in you that refuses to die in a life that is not yours? Rumi does not call this a crisis. He calls it an invitation not everyone accepts because it requires the courage to stop pretending. And perhaps now the most honest question is not where you should be, but what in you is asking to return, and how much longer you will continue to ignore this silent request that already knows exactly where it comes from. If you feel out of place, do not try to fix it as if it were a flaw, because Rumi points to this feeling as a clear sign that you are living far from the point where your soul breathes. This sensation does not come from nowhere. It arises when you spend too much time trying to fit into spaces that do not recognize you. You wake up and something already weighs on you before the day even begins. The body goes, the mind performs, but the soul stays behind. You call it exhaustion, but it is distance from yourself. And the more you ignore it, the more the discomfort grows, because the soul does not accept living in exile for long. Have you noticed that even when everything seems right, something still feels wrong? Rumi speaks of this misalignment as a silent warning. It is not the world that is against you. It is you living in a shape that is not yours. Being out of place is not external. It is internal. It is when you force permanence where there is only survival. You smile, respond, function, but you do not vibrate. And this absence of vibration becomes an emptiness that nothing fills. You try to change the environment, the people, the habits, but the feeling follows you, because the problem is not where you are, it is where you have drifted away from. In Sufism, the soul recognizes home by relief. Where there is truth, the chest loosens. Where there is falsehood, it tightens. If you live tight inside, something is misaligned. Rumi does not ask for long explanations. He points to feeling. Feeling does not deceive. The mind creates justifications. The soul creates signals. And the clearest signal is this: not belonging. Not belonging hurts because it breaks the illusion of control. You realize you cannot adapt to everything without losing yourself, and perhaps what you call a crisis is simply clarity arriving. You may spend years trying to convince yourself that this is just how it is, that everyone feels displaced, that it is only a phase. But Rumi warns, when the soul is not in its place, life becomes continuous effort. Everything demands too much energy. Even the simple things exhaust you. You begin to wonder why living requires so much effort. The answer is harsh but liberating, because you are living where your soul does not reside. And no one teaches how to listen to this, because listening requires stopping the escape. This out-of-placeness shows up in small things, in conversations that drain you, in routines that empty you, in goals that do not animate you. You accomplish everything and still feel this isn't it. Rumi calls this forgetting oneself, not forgetting your name or your story, but forgetting your own center. And when you forget the center, you try to compensate with noise, movement, distraction. But silence always returns to collect its due. Silence knows where you lost yourself. Perhaps you learned to adapt too early, to please, to fit, to not disturb. And that taught you to live outside yourself. Rumi says the soul suffers not from a lack of success, but from a lack of truth. Truth here is simple, living in coherence with what you feel. When you betray that, life becomes a role you perform every day. And performing is exhausting. Performing ages you from the inside. Performing creates this constant feeling of not being at home, even while being everywhere. When you feel out of place, the mind tries to find culprits: the job, the city, the people, the past. But Rumi points in another direction: distance from essence. Essence is not some distant mysticism. It is what makes you feel whole. Wholeness is not being happy all the time, it is being present. When you are in the right place, even pain has meaning. When you are in the wrong place, even joy sounds false. That confuses you because you begin to doubt everything, including yourself. The ego tries to convince you that leaving the wrong place is dangerous. It likes the safety of the familiar, even when it hurts. The soul prefers the true unknown to the false known. Rumi makes it clear, remaining where there is no truth is a slow way of losing yourself. And losing yourself this way does not cause an immediate shock, it causes continuous erosion. You become smaller, quieter inside, more distant from what you feel, until one day you realize you no longer recognize yourself. This feeling of not belonging is a crack in the mask. It is the soul saying it can no longer pretend normality, pretend satisfaction, pretend that everything is fine. Rumi does not ask you to destroy your life. He asks you to stop betraying yourself. The difference is immense. Stopping the betrayal begins with listening to the discomfort without trying to silence it. It begins with admitting that something does not fit, and that admission is already a return. You may even remain in the same external place, but something changes when you acknowledge the internal truth. The weight lessens because the lie loses its power. Rumi speaks of remembrance as a gentle and painful awakening at the same time. Gentle because it brings relief, painful because it reveals how far you wandered. But only those who see the distance can begin the way back. Those who ignore it keep circling in loops. When you feel out of place, observe how your body reacts. The body is honest. It contracts where there is no truth. It tires where there is no meaning. It falls ill where there is no listening. Rumi uses simple images because truth does not need complexity. You do not belong where you must explain yourself all the time. You do not belong where you must shrink to fit. The soul was not made to fit. It was made to flow. Perhaps you are afraid to hear this because you fear what comes next. The ego asks, "And if I leave, where will I go?" The soul answers, "First, return." Returning is not changing everything outside. It is aligning within. When the inside aligns, the outside begins to reorganize. Rumi trusts this movement. He does not promise immediate comfort. He promises truth. And truth, even when it hurts, liberates. This out-of-placeness also appears as longing for something you cannot name, a faceless nostalgia, a desire to leave without a destination. Rumi describes this as remembrance of the origin. Origin is not the past, it is a state of presence, a state of wholeness. When you drift from it, life loses flavor. You keep eating, talking, living, but without taste. Taste returns when there is alignment. You are not late, you are not broken, you are displaced, and displacement is resolved with direction, not with guilt. Rumi does not judge those who get lost, he calls those who want to return. The call comes as discomfort because if it came as comfort, you would keep sleeping. Discomfort is mercy in disguise. It prevents you from settling into the false. Notice how many times you silenced what you felt to maintain a structure. Structures fall. The soul remains. Rumi teaches that everything non-essential falls sooner or later. When you build life far from the essential, collapse comes as correction, not as punishment. And this collapse begins internally, as this feeling of not belonging. It is a warning before the greater fall. Perhaps you are waiting for external confirmation to change, a clear sign. Rumi would say the sign is already here. It always has been. This persistent discomfort is the confirmation. The soul does not know how to shout, it knows how to insist, and it insists until you listen. The problem is not feeling out of place. The problem is normalizing it as if it were destiny. When you accept that perhaps it was never your place, something opens, not outside, but inside. Space opens. Space for listening. Space for honesty. Space for a path that has no name yet, but has truth. Rumi trusts this space more than any map, because maps are made by the mind, and the return is made by feeling. And perhaps now the question circling is not, where should I be? But what in me has been ignored for far too long? Because until you listen to that, the entire world will seem wrong. And when you do listen, even without changing anything outside yet, something begins to align. And this feeling of being out of place starts to reveal what it always was, an insistent invitation that has not yet finished speaking. If you feel out of place, stop trying to adjust as if the mistake were yours, because this discomfort is not a flaw, it is a message. Rumi points out that the soul does not adapt to what is false, It becomes ill, and this illness begins as a mild unease, then turns into fatigue, then into a void that nothing can fill. You keep living, but something in you does not keep up. You feel as though you are always one step behind your own life. This feeling of being out of place is the soul telling you that you are living too far from what is true for you. When you are in the wrong place, everything becomes effort. Conversations exhaust you. Routines weigh heavy. Even rest does not rest. Rumi says that where there is no truth, the heart does not find repose. You may smile, function, fulfill obligations, but inside you never truly relax. And this does not pass with time. It only accumulates. You begin to think you are weak, too sensitive, too demanding, when in reality, you are simply trying to live in a space that does not recognize your essence. This feeling does not appear all at once. It grows silently. You learn to ignore it. You learn to distract yourself. You learn to justify it. But the soul does not accept being forgotten. It always returns with the same warning. Something does not fit. Rumi calls this longing for the inner home. It is not nostalgia for the past. It is the absence of alignment in the present. You miss something that still exists, but that you stopped listening to. Perhaps you have spent years trying to be acceptable instead of being true. This creates a deep displacement. You begin to live to maintain structures, not to honor what you feel. Rumi does not call this a sin. He calls it forgetfulness. Forgetting who you are when you are not trying to please. And every act of forgetting exacts an emotional price. The price is this: not belonging to your own life. When you feel out of place, observe how your body reacts. The body knows before the mind. It locks up where there is no truth. It grows heavy where there is no meaning. Rumi uses simple images because truth is simple. The fish suffers outside the water, not because it is weak, but because it is in the wrong environment. You are not broken. You are out of your element. This sense of being out of place also appears as urgency without direction. You want to change everything, but you do not know what. You want to leave, but you do not know where. Rumi points out that this restlessness is the soul trying to return to its center. The center is where you do not need to explain yourself, where you do not need to diminish yourself, where you do not need to pretend you are fine when you are not. You may achieve things, gain recognition, accumulate results, and still feel that this is not it. This is confusing because the world tells you that you should be satisfied. Rumi confronts this logic. Satisfaction without truth becomes anesthesia. The soul does not feed on applause. It feeds on coherence. When coherence is missing, emptiness remains. The ego tries to convince you to stay where it hurts because it is familiar. It calls this safety. The soul calls it a prison. Rumi makes it clear that remaining in the false corrodes slowly. It does not explode. It erodes. You grow tired without knowing why, sad without a clear reason, distant from yourself without noticing when it began. This feeling of not belonging is not something to be fought. It is something to be listened to. Rumi does not ask you to flee the world. He asks you to stop fleeing yourself. And that begins when you admit, perhaps this was never my place. Admitting this is frightening because it dismantles the narrative you built to survive. But it also brings relief because truth always relieves. When you accept this possibility, something changes in the air. Not outside, but inside. Guilt diminishes. Confusion begins to organize itself. You understand that you did not fail, you simply drifted away. And distance is resolved through return, not punishment. Rumi speaks of remembrance as a gentle yet firm return inward, returning to listen to what you silenced. You do not belong where you must harden yourself in order to exist. You do not belong where you must silence what you feel. You do not belong where you must constantly mold yourself. The soul recognizes the right place by inner relaxation. Even amid chaos, there is a sense of being at home. When that does not exist, something is wrong, even if everything appears right. Perhaps you were praised for adapting, for enduring, for being strong, but no one warned you that this would come at a cost. Rumi says that strength without truth becomes weight. You grow strong on the outside and exhausted on the inside, and this exhaustion does not go away with sleep, because it is not physical, it is existential. It is the soul tired of not being heard. This sense of being out of place also manifests as sadness without a cause. You look at life and cannot explain why it hurts. There was no great trauma, no great mistake. There was only distance, enough distance for the soul to begin to ache. Rumi teaches that the pain of the soul does not ask for medicine, it asks for listening, and listening requires silence. When you begin to hear this call, you realize that it is not the world that needs to change first. It is the internal axis. Rumi does not promise ready-made answers, he promises direction. Direction begins when you stop denying what you feel. Denial keeps you trapped. Admission opens a path, even if you still do not know where it leads. You may remain in the same external place for a while, but not in the same way. Something in you awakens. You stop violating yourself to fit. You stop blaming yourself for not belonging. This restores dignity to feeling. Rumi honors feeling because it is the language of the soul. Ignoring it is ignoring yourself. This displacement also appears when you feel you are living someone else's life, expectations that are not yours, paths you did not consciously choose. Rumi points out that living this way creates an inner separation. You watch yourself living, but you do not feel present, as if you were always observing, never inhabiting. The soul knows when you are living too far from it. It does not accuse, it calls, and it calls insistently. If you are hearing this now, it is because this call is still alive. The danger is not feeling out of place. The danger is becoming accustomed to it, because habit kills sensitivity. Rumi says that everything false falls sooner or later. When it does not fall outside, it falls inside. Collapse begins internally, as this persistent feeling of not belonging. It is a correction before a greater break, a warning before the total loss of meaning. Listening now prevents greater pain later. Perhaps you are waiting for a clearer sign, something external to confirm it. But Rumi would say the sign is already here. It always has been. This discomfort that does not go away, this feeling of living sideways. The soul does not shout, it insists, and it insists until it is heard. When you accept that perhaps it was never your place, it does not mean you know which place is. It simply means you stopped lying, and stopping the lie is already a powerful return. Truth begins small, but it grows quickly when respected. Rumi trusts this inner movement more than any external plan. And while this sensation continues to pulse, perhaps the question is not where you should be, but what in you is asking to return now. What you abandoned in order to adapt, and how much longer you will continue to live as a guest in your own life while the soul keeps knocking on the door, remembering, insisting, calling, not yet finished saying everything that needs to be heard. Perhaps you are afraid to admit that it was never your place because that seems to invalidate everything that came before. But Rumi does not invalidate the path. He reveals the learning within it. You needed to get lost in order to recognize the call. You needed to feel the emptiness in order to value the return. Nothing was in vain if it brought you to listening. When you begin to respect this feeling, something changes in the way you relate to life. You stop forcing yourself. You stop betraying yourself in silence. You stop blaming yourself for not belonging. This does not resolve everything at once, but it shifts the axis. And when the axis shifts, the movement shifts with it. The soul knows when you are far away, and it does not give up easily. It insists because it wants you whole, not adapted. It wants you present, not merely functioning. It wants you alive, not just surviving. Rumi trusts this call more than any external structure, because structures pass while essence remains. And while this sensation continues to arise, perhaps it is not meant to be silenced, but deepened, felt without escape, observed with honesty. Because the more you listen, the more you realize that this feeling of being out of place is not an ending. It is a quiet beginning, an open portal that has not yet revealed everything it holds, and that keeps calling, questioning, insisting, as if to say that there is still something essential in you waiting to be recognized. If this feeling of being out of place touched something in you, do not ignore it. This is not entertainment. It is recognition. Subscribe to the channel now because this space is not meant to distract. It is meant to remember. Activate the bell because each video is a direct continuation of this call your soul already knows. Share it only with those you sense are living displaced inside, because not everyone is ready to hear this. And stay. This theme does not end. It deepens.